Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Sports Talk 1240. I am your host, Rob Cramer. I'll be taking you through the final hour of Sports Talk 1240 tonight, up until 10 o'clock, right here on WGBB 1240, Long Island's oldest radio station. If you like Sports Talk 1240 and you want to check out all of our hosts and all of our schedules and everything that we've got going on, you can check us out on SportsTalk1240.com. And check us out on our Facebook. Give us a like, Sports Talk 1240, or you could follow us at Sports Talk 1240 on Twitter. Also, like I said, my name's Robert Cramer. I'm the host. You can check me out on Twitter at Cramer New York. It's my last name, Cramerny. And if you want, later on we'll be taking calls, so you can give us a call at 1-516-623-1240. Thanks again for tuning in here and joining me here. And, we've had a lot of interesting things, a lot of crazy sports going on, a lot of, intrigue going on. We got the Yankees and the Red Sox going on. They're coming back to the stadium tomorrow. We'll get to that a little bit later. I want to open up with the NFL and our hometown team, starting off with the New York Jets. The Jets won today. They had just a terrific game at MetLife Stadium, as they easily handled the Denver Broncos 34-16. It didn't seem like it was going to be easy right off the bat when Bilal Powell was fumbling a ball to put Denver right into the red zone, and Case Keenum connected to the end zone. It was 7-0 before you even knew it. But the Jets were able to hold their ground, and they stood up and they outlasted a tough Denver team, which doesn't look so tough now, but coming into this game, you had a lot of reason to respect that club and that defense on the other side of the field, which, that defense, speaking of them, they just could not contain the Jet running game today, as the Jets ran all over the field. And everyone's favorite person to criticize right now in the Jets, Isaiah Crowell, took that mantle, he took that spotlight that people have given him over the last couple of weeks, ever since he did that famous wiping routine where he wiped his butt with the football and threw it into the Cleveland crowd, where he famously said that he meant no disrespect afterwards. Well, what did you mean then? But I digress. The Jets had a great game today on the ground, specifically Isaiah Crowell, who broke every Jet record for running backs that you can imagine today. He ran for 219 yards, 15 carries, punched in a touchdown, and he just looked fantastic. 219 yards on the ground today beats the other two Jets to have topped the 200-yard mark for a game in a single season, as he broke Thomas Jones' record. Thomas Jones ran for 210 yards in 2008, and Curtis Martin ran for 203 yards in 2000. So you got two of the most successful running backs in Jet history, and Isaiah Crowell just ran right past the two of them. And just to point this out, Isaiah Crowell had a much less talented offensive line than both those running backs did, as Curtis Martin was playing behind a couple of big guys. Fabini was on that line, and Kevin Mawai, and Damian Woody, and Mangold, and DeBrickashaw Ferguson were on the Thomas Jones line. So when you look there, you know there's really not that talent that you had on those other two offensive lines. So you really got to give it to Crowell. And when you see some of the runs that guy had today, man, it was just out of this world. And against a defense that's supposed to be very tough. So you got to tip your cap to the guy. You got to hope that maybe that talent, because the one thing about this guy, Isaiah Crowell, is that he has always had a ridiculous amount of talent. He was supposed to be going to Alabama. Then he ended up getting himself into some, dumb trouble as a kid. He got booted off the team. He ended up playing in some D2 league school and played his way into the NFL. And you got to tip your cap to a kid like that. He's taken his lumps since coming into the league. He was playing on the 0-16 Browns, and he certainly has had his moments in the league from a team aspect, as the Browns over the last couple of years are setting records in futility. But other than that, the Jets had a lot to be positive about today. You have Isaiah Crowell having his fantastic day. You have Bilal Powell, just another amazing day. 20 carries, 99 yards, Was over 100 yards at one point, but he, had a little bit of trouble getting back over that 100-yard mark. Lost a couple of yards and ended one shy, 99 of 100. Fantasy owners are upset about that, but nobody else really is, except for maybe Belial, because he probably would have liked to have that just to have that little feather in his cap. But it didn't really mean anything as the Jets came away with the victory today. Sam Darnold looked fantastic. A lot of people would laugh at saying fantastic for a guy who had a tough interception, batted down pass at the line, and it was picked off on a deflection by a big a big defensive lineman. I think it was the D tackle who had the pick. It's kind of embarrassing, but Darnold goes out there. He throws 3 touchdowns. 198 yards. Had that one fluky pick. Him and Robbie Anderson are looking like a dangerous combo because, man, he hit Robbie Anderson in stride twice today, completely beating up that young Darby, I believe is his name, the cornerback from Denver. He had that kid beat twice today. And remember, that's the kid who they traded Aqib Talib to bump this kid into a starter's role. So, you have one of the top corners in the league in Aqib Talib, you turn around, you deal him, stick with this kid Darby. You're going to have growing pains, but, that came out today twice. 2 big spots. And, back-to-back early on, too. The Jets had a 75-yard touchdown run from Kroll and a 76-yard touchdown pass from Darnold to Robbie Anderson. So, Jet fans were seeing long plays like we haven't seen in years. So it was very, very interesting to see that. We saw, there's a lot of positives from the offensive side of the ball today. A lot. The Jets scored 34 points, so, with their rookie quarterback who looked shaky the last few weeks. Remember, they're coming off the 31-12 embarrassment against the Jacksonville defense. A tough Jacksonville team, though, but still. It doesn't take the sting away of how inept they looked against that defense. But they turned it around today, looked good, and now let's take a quick look at their defense. The defensive side of the ball for the Jets was fantastic as well. Leonard Williams, the cat, the big cat, he's alive. The guy's got a pulse. The Jets, the last year or two, there was a lot of people who were down on Leonard Williams. A lot of Jet fans were pretty vocal about this guy's lack of sacks, his lack of, being an imposing threat on the line, being that pass rusher that they thought they got when they picked him at number 6 just a couple of years ago. Well, it looks like that imposing pass rusher, the pass rusher from within, has awoken in Leonard Williams as he is looking like the guy they thought they had. He's looking like Muhammad Wilkerson when Wilkerson was a double-digit sack guy a year, when Sheldon Richardson was a double-digit sack guy. Let's hope he doesn't end up where those guys did, not on the team, but Leonard Williams looks like a serious threat. And he's paired with another serious threat on that line, who the Jets added, Atachu. He hit a sack today. He's a guy that got cut by the Chargers, picked up, and he's fit right into this Jet defense. They're using him in perfect situations. You saw he jarred the ball loose. It ended up being recovered by Denver, but he came up right behind Case Keenum and took him down, knocking that ball loose. And you got to be very happy with what you've got out of him. It looked like the defense was really, really on another level today. They knew that their defensive coordinator, Casey Williams, is sick, and he's got an illness. There was a lot of concern. You could see it in Coach Bull's face. I forget if it was Thursday or Friday when they had the press conference, but it was when they first learned that Casey Williams was ill. And, you could tell that it was a serious situation and that the Jets are playing for him. The Jets, when you get behind a guy like that, you go in the trenches for that. When you find out that a guy who has put and prepared so much into getting a game plan together for you, and, it's kind of, it's not, obviously not in the same vein, but, it's kind of like these guys battling in the trenches, and you can really understand that. and the Jet defense really showed up today. A guy who had a terrific game, Marcus May, had the interception, came up 1 yard short of a game ending, which it would have just been adding gravy on top to the score. It wouldn't have been game winning or anything, but he ended up 1 yard short of a interception back to the house today. The actually wide receiver, the rookie wide receiver, was the one that took him down at the 1 yard line, and you could tell he was exhausted. The kid, he had a hell of a game though, as he went out there and had a pick. He had half a sack. He just looked really good. 8 tackles, forced fumble. He checked every box today, and another guy who's really living up to every cent that they've paid him is Avery Williamson. Guy they signed. They signed him a linebacker away from Tennessee Titans in the offseason. It got a little bit of fanfare, but maybe not what it should have. He's a younger linebacker, 26 years old, quick out there, and he's in on every defensive snap, man. I enjoy watching Avery Williamson play the game so much, and he really plays with the passion that you need if you're going to be a successful defensive player in this NFL. Because you can see other guys out there that just look disinterested. Guys that got their paydays already. I'm not going to mention any names, Muhammad Wilkerson, but I've seen guys get paydays and they don't live up to their contract. Well, Avery Williamson is not one of those guys. He's come in and he's worked his butt off even harder after getting paid the big bucks. It kind of reminds me of how Snacks Harrison did it for the Giants after the Giants paid him, which was also another big mistake by the Jets. The Jets chose Muhammad Wilkerson over Snacks, so that kind of hurts. But Harrison went out there that offseason and worked his tail off and got himself into shape, and they went out there and had a playoff season that year. Well, Avery Williamson is having that type of season. I don't know if the Jets are going to make the playoffs, but Avery Williamson is going out there and earning every dollar that he was paid. Now the Jets are 2-3. They're still tied with Buffalo, for last in the East, but they're only a game under 500. Their season could have gone one of two ways today. It could have been what happened, 2-3. You still got a shot. Your playoff hopes haven't been completely dashed 5 weeks into the year. You got to remember, actually, a year ago at this time, the Jets were 3-2 and tied for first place with Buffalo and New England in the East. So, what a difference a year makes. But the Jets, I would dare to say Jet fans feel much more confident today at 2-3 than they did last year at 3-2, mainly because the Jets got their quarterback. The Jets got their guy. Sam Darnold showed flashes of it today. Now, you're not going to see it every week. If you're familiar with that old show, Growing Pains, just go on YouTube right now and look up the Growing Pains theme song, because we're going to be hearing that. We're going to be feeling some Growing Pains, Jet fans, this year. No doubt about it. There's really nothing that you can do about it. We saw it just a week ago against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But then you're going to have games like you have today, where you sit back and say to yourself, uh-oh, we might have an all-pro quarterback on our hands. And it might not come to fruition this year. It might not come to fruition next year. But there's a reason why when the Jets drafted this guy, you saw a lot of players from that team dancing around on draft night. There's a big reason for that. And don't be surprised if when you turn around, the New York Jets are getting praised years from now for this Sam Darnold pick. And, I don't want to poke the New York Giants bear, because we're going to get to them in 1 second. But as good as Saquon does look at times, if a franchise quarterback fell to the Jets, I'll always be in debt of gratitude to the New York Giants for giving him and delivering him to the New York Jets. But next week, the New York Jets will celebrate the 50th anniversary. Now, this is what brings it all together. The 50th anniversary of Super Bowl III. The only other time in their franchise history that they had a franchise quarterback. Joe Willie, Joe Namath, Broadway Joe. They'll be playing the Indianapolis Colts, who were the Baltimore Colts when these two teams fought in the Super Bowl 50 years ago. The 1968 season, January of 1969, it all went down. So it'll be great to see all the guys on the field. Um, you're going to see, you know, obviously you're going to see Joe out there. You're going to see all the guys. It's something that you know, it only comes around so often, especially for the Jets, once every 50 years. So it's going to be good to go out there and see everything going on next week. So if you're a Jet fan and you have the opportunity, go out and check out the everything they're having going on. It's going to be really going to be a great day, especially at MetLife, no doubt about it. And it's just going to make you think. Just sit there and think if you're a Jet fan. Maybe we'll have another ring soon because we've got a quarterback that has the potential that Joe had back then. And, with that, I'd like to turn it to a team that has a franchise quarterback presently. He looked like it a couple of weeks ago when they won that game against Houston, and he had a terrific game. I believe it was 25-29. But Eli Manning, he was not the problem today. He had a good game overall. But the Giants fought hard. They had a tough game. They were behind most of the day. They were down 17-3 early. But then you got that crazy trick play where Eli lateraled it to Odell Beckham Jr., who then just absolutely reared back and fired one downfield in the corner to Saquon Barkley, took it into the end zone, and cut the lead to 17-10. That put the Giants right back in the game because Carolina was comfortably in the driver's seat up until that point. And but when it came down to it, these teams traded blows, especially in the second half. Didn't look like it was going to be a close game, but then boom, it's 27-24. Giants are driving. The Panthers get the ball back. They take it down the field. They kick a field goal, 30-24, handing it to the Giants with less than 2 minutes left. So you're thinking to yourself, well, if the Giants win this game, or if the Giants even have a chance to take the lead in this game, it'll really be something spectacular. Well, not only did the Giants do that, Saquon Barkley took it to the end zone again, and the Giants went up 31-30, but the defense could not make a stop as Cam Newton led them right down the field, 63-yard field goal. Nobody thought they were going to hit it. Graham Gano did, and he puts it right through, 33-31 final. New York Giants had dropped to 1-4 in frankly shocking fashion. I did not think they were going to blow that game. But when you break down the stats, it's a very interesting game because Odell Beckham Jr. threw that touchdown pass. He also would later catch a touchdown pass. He became the first Giant to do that, throw and catch a touchdown in the same game, since Frank Gifford in 1959. And if you're a Giants fan and you remember Frank Gifford, well, that was long before the Super Bowl era of 1967 to the present. So, you go back quite a way. And, another big thing for Odell Beckham, and he just keeps putting up these numbers. I mean, Giant fans would rather these wins, but he keeps breaking down these numbers with the Odell Beckham Jr. His 22nd 100-yard game ties him with the Monty Toomer for the most in New York Giant history. And it just goes to show you how good Odell has been, considering Toomer accomplished that feat in 13 years with the Giants between 96 and 2008, and all in the NFL, all with the Giants, obviously. And Odell Beckham Jr. is only 26 years old in now his 5th season. And in the 4th season, he missed most that year. So it really is an incredible feat when you sit down and look at it, although, over the scope of the NFL history, the passing game really is ratcheted up these last few years. Last, 10, 15 years, the numbers are through the roof. So I guess you could take that for what it's worth, but it's still a fantastic number. He's already tied 22, the all-time Giants leader for 100-yard games. His next game will make him the leader by himself. And, there's plenty of time to add to that record, mind you, after he just signed that big contract. And, but to get back to it, the main point of today is that the New York Giants did not make the stop when they had to. The Giant defense, everybody said, if the Giant offense can just get their act together, the Giant defense will carry them to wins, one way or another. Well, that didn't go down today, as the Giant defense really choked in its biggest spot of the season. and the Giants snapped their NFL high streak of not scoring 30 points in a game. They did it in dramatic fashion, taking a 31-30 lead late, and still wasn't good enough. They lost in just as dramatic, or if not more dramatic fashion, on that 63-yard field goal down in Carolina. Like I said, this drops the Giants to 1-4. The team fought, but this is supposed to be a season of contention for this team. So far, that has not been the case. They've had a couple of positives. Odell Beckham Jr. looks healthy, which is a good thing. Saquon Barkley looks as advertised. I mean, we haven't necessarily seen that rushing game. He's had a couple of good numbers rushing-wise so far. Mostly is that he's broke a couple of big plays in that game to pad the stats. But we haven't really seen that signature rushing game from Saquon. We might not see it this year because it's still a beat-up line. It's still a tough offensive line to play behind. But I expect that he will get it at some point. And he's still going to have impressive numbers at the end of the year one way or the other. He's been much more impressive to me as a receiver than as a running back so far this year. And, when you look at that offensive line that I just mentioned too, another guy that could be a mainstay is second-round draft pick Will Hernandez. He's getting praise from scouts and observers all over the league. So despite the rocky start that he had, it looks like Will Hernandez is going to be a solid addition and a big part of this offensive line for the future. So if I was a Giant fan, you might have been a little worried at first. You might have been second-guessing Dave Gettleman, who, by the way, also, all prayers to Dave Gettleman as well as to Casey Rogers. I think I said Casey Williams before, but I think it's Casey Rogers. I'm sorry. Casey and Dave Gettleman, it's been revealed this week that they're both ill, and, so keep them in your prayers. And, but as we keep an eye, it looks like that Dave Gettleman did make the right selection, using that early second-round pick to help solidify that offensive line. It might not be totally solidified yet, but it's heading in the right direction, no doubt about it. And, so we take a look now, the 1-4 Giants, they will be hosting the Super Bowl champion Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champs, next week. The Giants have lost 3 straight to Philadelphia, and to be honest, I was doing some digging. If you're a Giants fan, I'm sure you know this by feeling, but let me just throw a couple of numbers at you. Since 2013, the Giants have only beat the Eagles 1 time. They've lost 7 of 8 games. Also, if you want to take it back a step further, they're 4-15 against the Eagles in regular season play since 2008. Over the last 10 years, they've only beat the Eagles 4 times. That is just astonishing, if you ask me. I could not believe those numbers when I saw it. It always seems to be a tough game one way or the other, but the Eagles have just found a way. I was going to say over the last few years, it's really over the last decade, to be the thorn in the Giants' side, at least in the regular season. Now, this game we got coming up is a Thursday night game. It's going to be a lot of fun. These two teams, the Giants know they're playing for their lives. If you fall to, 1-4 seems like a death sentence, and in most cases it is. But you can dig your way out of it. You've got to play your butt off, but you can dig your way out of it. With 1-5, you might as well just bury yourself because it's over. You'd pretty much have to win out to have a real opportunity. And I don't know if the Giants have that capability. So it's going to be real fun to see this game because the Eagles want to keep pounding the Giants, and the Giants want to keep their season alive. So we're going to see 2 teams potentially heading in different directions, and that can make for some real fireworks, no doubt about it. And all right, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming up to our first break of the day. But before we do that, though, I want to have a word from our friends at BetDSI.com. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that great time of year again where football season is upon us. Week 5 in the NFL is nearly complete, and have you won big yet? I have, because I go to BetDSI.com. BetDSI is an A-plus rated sportsbook, and it's been around since 1998. In the past 20 years, they've built an impeccable reputation for great service and fast payment, combined with an excellent mobile interface so you can play, win, and get paid anywhere, anytime. And if you sign up for a new account now and use my promo code COFFEE100, that's COFFEE 100, you'll double your money up to a $500 deposit. So if you put in 100, they'll match that. You got $200. If you put in that 500 max, bam, you got $1,000 in your account. My Monday night locks have been pretty good so far here on Sports Talk 1240, as I'm 2-0, and I won the last time I was on 2 weeks ago when Pittsburgh covered over Tampa Bay. This week, BetDSI has the Redskins and Saints Monday night game at the Superdome, as the Saints being a 6-point favorite. So with that in mind, I'm going to pick the Redskins plus 6. I don't like the Saints defense, and I think that Alex Smith and the Redskins have a pretty good team. They're very underrated, and it would not surprise me if this game turned into some sort of shootout, which pretty much leads me to believe that they will keep it within a touchdown. I think, Alex Smith is ready to break out. He's got this team playing pretty good, and, especially with their decent offensive line and good running game, I would not be surprised if Washington was able to cover this. And, with BetDSI, don't forget that BetDSI doesn't only offer the best NFL odds, but NCAA, MLB, NBA, NHL, boxing, UFC. How about that McGregor fight last night, or the Khabib fight, to be more specific about it. But don't stand on the sideline. Just check them out on BetDSI.com. That's BETDSI.com, and use my promo code COFFEE100. That's for my podcast, Coffee with Cramer. Coffee100 is the promo code, and double your bankroll today at BetDSI.com. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, that worked out.
Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you, man.
Specialists in sports medicine and foot injuries. Country or online at countryfootcare.com. Want to advertise your business on Sports Talk 1240? Place an ad on SportsTalk1240.com and one radio commercial during the show every Sunday night here on AM 1240 WGBB. Our rates are very affordable. We'll even produce the radio commercial for you. Just head over to SportsTalk1240.com and fill out the Contact Us form, and let us start promoting your business today. Unflippable, unflappable, unlinkable. The Gusbuster is the only umbrella that won't flip inside out, rip, tear, or leak. Capable of withstanding winds over 55 miles per hour. All of our umbrellas are constructed of the finest quality materials and backed by a limited lifetime guarantee. What are you waiting for? Visit Gusbuster.com and get your Gusbuster today. Stay connected to Sports Talk 1240 by following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
I'm going to come back into that this day in sports history again, too. So,
Play the song again?
No, you don't have to play it again.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to let you know.
Station that serves your community. And now back to the show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Sports Talk 1240. I am your host, Rob Cramer, and today, this is This Day in Sports History. October 7th, 1936, after his third straight losing season, the Brooklyn Dodgers fired their manager, Casey Stengel. The future Hall of Famer would have two unimpressive stints with the Boston Bees and the Boston Braves in the early 40s before joining the Yankees in 1949. October 7th, 1950, 14 years after being fired by his now crosstown rivals, Casey Stengel and the Yankees were putting the finishing touches on their second straight World Series championship. Whitey Ford won his first World Series game that day as the Yankees swept the Whiz Kid Phillies 5-2 at Yankee Stadium. October 7th, 1972, the first regular season game at the Nassau Coliseum was played as the Calgary Flames defeated the Expansion Islanders 3-2. On this day, October 7th, 1984, Sweetness, the Bears' Walter Payton, rushes for 154 yards in a 20-7 win over the New Orleans Saints. In doing so, he became the NFL's all-time leading rusher, breaking Jim Brown's long-standing record. On this day, October 7, 2000, Benny Agbayani hits a walk-off home run off Aaron Foltz in the 13th inning as the Mets defeat the San Francisco Giants at 2-1 3-2 at Shea Stadium to take a 2-1 series lead. The Mets would eventually go on to win that series after Bobby Jones fired a complete game shutout the following day. And a year later, on October 7th, 2001, Barry Bonds hits his 73rd and final home run of the season in the first inning off Dodger righty and former Met Dennis Springer, a 2-1 win that would send the Giants into the playoffs over the Los Angeles Dodgers. And that's this day in sports history, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again for joining me here on Sports Talk 1240. And we've got a lot to get to right now, as now I'd like to talk about a little baseball, as we've got a great series brewing in the LDS. I'm sure most of us would much prefer if the Yankees and Red Sox would meet in a 7-game classic like they did in back-to-back years in 2003 and 2004. But this season, at least, it was just not in the cards due to this new playoff format, as the Yankees and Red Sox meet in this best-of-5 American League Division Series, and they've traded blows in the first 2 games, as the Red Sox grabbed Game 1 on Friday night, 5-4. J.A. Happ just did not look good. Chris Sale didn't have his best fastball, but got through it. Happ allowed a 3-run shot in the first inning to J.D. Martinez, and the Red Sox really didn't look back that night. They built a 5-0 lead, and they just held on. Like I said, Chris Sale, his fastball, it wasn't that 98, 99 fastball that we've seen in the All-Star game or early in seasons or when he's really rolling. It was more about 94, 95. He had his breaking stuff working. That slider was devastating, just catching the inside. I mean, that slider would be in the lefty's batter's box and break right back and catch that corner, hit the black, and there's nothing you can do if you're a batter but just stand there and basically tip your cap. As, like I said, the Yankees, they came back, they made it a valiant effort. It was a 5-4 win after the Red Sox built that 5-0 lead. This victory was actually Chris Sale's first playoff win. He went 5 1/3, 2 runs, 8 strikeouts. So, a good showing in his first playoff appearance. Aaron Judge hit a home run off Craig Kimbrell in the 9th to make it a 1-run game. So, really got Red Sox fans sweating that out a little bit. But in the end, it really didn't matter, as Craig Kimbrell got a 4-out save, just making that one mistake, but getting the job done in the 8th when he came in with a runner on. As for Game 2, that went the Yankees' way last night, Saturday night at Fenway. The Yankees won that game 6-2 as Tanaka set the tone. Tanaka 5 1/3, 3 hits, 1 run, 4 strikeouts. Boone lifted him after only 78 pitches. I didn't really get that too much. I would think that, especially in a series like this where you're going to be using your guys over and over again, and that guys are going to be tired, especially by the 5th game, and if you move on to the championship series after that. So I don't really get taking Tanaka out. You don't want to overuse your bullpen, which they seem to be doing to Betances to me so far. But, if you're a Yankee fan right now, you just got to put your trust in Aaron Boone, and you got to hope that he pushes all the right buttons. I'm sure Yankee fans remember that Aaron Boone was on their roster the last time that they beat the Red Sox in a playoff series. He wasn't on that 2004 roster. As a matter of fact, this win that the Yankees took last night, the 6-2 victory, stopped a 5-game postseason losing streak to the Red Sox. The Yankees had lost 5 straight games dating back to Game 3 of the 2004 NLCS, in which the Yankees smashed the Red Sox 19-8 at Fenway. And what's interesting about that is that now we return to Yankee Stadium tonight for the first of 2 games. They're guaranteed 2 games now, one way or the other. And the man taking the mound is 19-8, Luis Severino. Now, Luis Severino is going to be on the hill tomorrow night, so it's going to be very nice to see what this guy has in store for the Yankees and the Yankee fans and the Red Sox mainly. But I just want to talk about this Game 2 a little bit more second before we turn to full preview mode for tomorrow night. So, the Yankees took Game 2 6-2. Judge home run in the first inning. Man, was that a Jeter-like home run or what? I was sitting at the bar last night. We were at a table, actually, by that point. But watching that home run, I just turned and I said, that is the most Jeter thing that you can possibly do. This guy reminds me of Jeter so much. And just seeing that home run, because that set the tone right away. If David Price gets out of that first inning, and by the way, there was the old saying, and Pedro Martinez even said it himself, that the Yankees were his daddy in the early 2000s. If you weren't there at the time, you probably won't get it. But Pedro Martinez famously said that the Yankees were his daddy after they beat him up a few times in the regular season. Well, the Yankees are David Price's daddy, because David Price just stinks when he faces the Yankees. As a matter of fact, David Price stinks in the playoffs. 10 playoff starts. He's 0-9. Maybe you should just use this guy out of the pen. He's like, if I was the Red Sox, I would not have the heart to start him in a big game in the playoffs. Starting him up 1-0 at home against the Yankees, I guess that makes sense. See if you can get something out of him. But to me, he only went 2 innings. He went less than 2 innings, 1 2/3. He gave up 3 runs, didn't strike out a batter, and he got yanked. So, to me, I use David Price out of the bullpen for the rest of the series. If you even want to do that, which I wouldn't even trust him with that, but I would make sure that he doesn't face Gary Sanchez or he doesn't face Aaron Judge in a big spot. The other thing that hurt them the last ever since Game 1 was that Aaron Hicks went down, and Aaron Hicks coming down with the strained hammy, which they said it didn't really look that bad. I think they said it was a grade 1, just something that just needs to be looked at. So nothing showed up on his MRI, which is good. But you still want to take precaution, and that's why they've had Gardy out there the last couple of days. But for me, as good as Aaron Hicks was in the regular season, you don't want to forget about everything that Gardy has done and how good and clutch he can be. So, to be honest, when I saw Hicks coming out, you hate losing Hicks, you hate losing his defense, but plugging a guy in like Gardy, who's got a ring, he's got that experience, he's been on playoff runs, he's a veteran, you're really not losing that much. So hopefully Hicks comes back quick, but if you got to rely on Gardy for a little while, you're not doing yourself any harm for the most part. So Sanchez finally woke up. He hit 2 home runs in that game. Bombs over center field, just over the monster. This guy is an animal. Just complete domination in that game for Sanchez. It's got to make you feel very good as a Yankee fan. And I'll tell you what, Gary, here's a hint. If you want people to stop talking about your defense and your everything else, your regular season that went along with it, keep hitting home runs like that, because you won't hear one other word about it. And that was proved by the fact today that you woke up and all you heard was people talking about his home runs. You didn't hear anybody saying, "Oh, well, he let a couple of balls get away from him," this and that. Nope. Everybody is happy because you're producing at the plate, and that's what you were brought in to do. And Betances, he's another guy, a complete turnaround. Who would have thought? Dylan Betances, who was in the doghouse last year, couldn't throw the ball over the plate, looked completely lost at times. Just really fantastic to see how far this guy has come, where the Yankees are relying on him for more than 1 inning at times. So good to see that. Another thing, the Yankee bullpen has been getting a lot of praise I don't want to knock them too much, and I know J.A. Happ didn't show up, but don't forget that in that first game, even though the stat book will tell you that they did throw 6 shutout innings after Happ gave up those early runs, that's not fully true because Happ left with runners on base, and Chad Green came in and let both of them score. That's a thing that, being a relief pitcher, coming in and stranding runners is part of your game. And if you're going to sit there and try and tell me that the Yankees bullpen gets credit for 6 shutout innings when Chad Green, who's supposed to be one of their top guys, comes in and lets 2 score right off the bat, I'm going to have to take issue with that just a little bit. Because for the most part, the Yankees have gotten the job done from a bullpen perspective. Chapman's looked good. You really can't argue with that. And through 2 in Fenway, you split. Now, when you're going, I know the Yankees are a 100-win team, but when you're going against a team that won 108 games, going into their house and splitting is a win in the end. I know you're going to want to win both. I know you want to do it, but against a good team like that, it's just not realistic. And look at how it went last year in the American League Championship Series, where the Yankees won all their home games and the Astros won all their home games, and that was it. See you later. The Astros were 4-0 at home. The Yankees were 3-0 at home, and that was it. Now the Yankees have their win on the road. It's a real series because that's what that's the old saying. Now if Boston wins one in this one, now you've had 2 road teams get a win, and you've got yourself a heck of a series. And when it comes down to it, we got 3 more games left. It's a best of 3 now. You split the first 2 more at Yankee Stadium, and if both teams get one, it'll move on to Game 5 at Fenway to see who goes to the American League Championship Series. The stakes could not be higher. And going in Game 3 tomorrow night, we got Nate Eovaldi, the former Yankee, the former Tampa Bay Ray, and the former Marlin, actually, who the Yankees got him from. And he's going to be going against Luis Severino. Like I said, he's 19-8, had a great year, had a rough ending to his season, but he still had very good numbers. 4 innings of shutout baseball in the wild card game in the Yankee victory over the Oakland A's. So, a lot of people want to say that 4 innings in a wild card game is like 8 shutout innings in any other game. I don't know how much I agree with that because, believe me, I'm a Met fan. I saw Noah Syndergaard throw 7 shutout innings and strike out 10 batters. And if in that game, that kept the Mets in it going toe-to-toe with Madison Bumgarner. And if Noah had only thrown 4 innings that day, I know I wouldn't be throwing my glove in the air saying, hey, he had a great game. So, it takes perspective right there because the Yankees might be happy with it, but in a lot of other situations, people would not have been happy with it. But, right now, if you're a Yankee fan, you got to be positive. You got to have confidence in your team. Yankee fans don't. I've had too many Yankee fans tell me that they can't rely on this team. This team has no guts. I can't believe I've actually heard people say that. This team has, they're lacking certain elements of a winning baseball team. I don't agree with that at all. I think this team learned a lot from losing in Game 7 in the ALCS last year. I think this team has a hell of a lot of talent. And I think that this series with Boston will probably be coming back to Fenway. And we're going to get a big Game 5 here. And the Yankees are going to get a chance to do just what they did last year in Game 5 in Cleveland and come away with a huge victory. And if they do that, man, that'll feel real good. And not as good as going to the World Series, but knocking off that 108-win Boston team who you chased down all season, that's going to feel real good. and you can't blame the Yankees and Yankee fans for thinking ahead when it comes to that kind of thing. And real quick, as we look at the rest of the postseason, we saw the Rockies wrap up the LDS against Colorado today. The Rockies, my cousin Dan and my uncle were actually there. Hope you guys had a good time. That's pretty cool, going to an elimination game in Colorado. You got to love that. The Rockies had a great season, tough ending, but the National League MVP, and I think it's a slam dunk at this point, and it should be, Christian Yelich, and the Brewers will be moving on. And there'll be a big challenge for the two teams that are going at it right now, the Braves and the Dodgers, as the Braves look to avoid elimination. And the Dodgers look to get to another NLCS and look to get back to their third, I think it would be their third straight NLCS, and then it would be, if they get to the World Series, their second straight World Series appearance. So we've got a lot of baseball ahead of us right now. There's we saw on the other side, Cleveland just have nothing go right for them, as the at the Houston Astros just look like that 100-win team, the 103-win team that we all thought they'd be, and they really have flipped the switch to keep it going. And what's it called? With the Mets right now, we've got some GM interviews that will be beginning this week. And to transition out of postseason baseball into the Mets kind of stinks. But, we got the GM interviews that are beginning this week right now. The Wilpons seem to be baseball kryptonite so far, as a few well-known qualified candidates such as Ben Sherrington, Thad Levine, and Dan Duquette have passed on the opportunity to even interview with the Mets. Also, considering the fact that the Wilpons usually top the list of ownership that league execs would least like to work with, this is part of the ugly equation that we have right now with the Mets. Word is that official names of candidates won't be revealed until we move on to the final round and at least the follow-up round of interviews next week. So this will probably all come into a clearer picture next week. Aside from that, the Mets will reportedly talk to Nats assistant GM DeJohn Watson, a former player who's credited with being a young and out-of-the-box thinker, so I wouldn't necessarily be against him. He was also under Tony La Russa in Arizona, so that would be kind of cool. Another guy who we've heard from is Gary LaRocque, a former Mets scouting director and current Cardinals director of player development. So we would definitely be interested in seeing something like that. Gary LaRocque seems to be the guy to me that stands above all else, because word is that Fred Wilpon wants a guy that's got that scouting background. I think Gary falls into that, that genre that he really wants to go. Even though it looks like Jeff will get a couple of younger guys to interview too, like this DeJohn Watson. Also, Doug Melvin, the senior advisor for the Brewers, to their GM, and it's very good to see Doug Melvin, because I like Doug Melvin a lot. I think he's got a lot of talent, and it would not surprise me if he ends up near the end of the race. He might not be the guy that gets it for the Mets, but he'll be in that mix, no doubt about it. There's a couple other names mentioned out there, but nothing really is official yet. And like I said, we should really know by next week who the frontrunners are. I'm sure there will be some reports coming out this week of who's the leader, or who that the Mets prefer, or some dark horses that we haven't heard of yet. So it just would not surprise me at all. It's going to be a long process, but I hope by the time the World Series is getting underway, the picture is more clear, and we know exactly who we're dealing with. So that's from a Mets standpoint right now. We're coming near the end of the show now, ladies and gentlemen. We've got less than 10 minutes left, so I just want to get to two more things that have been interesting me so far. Talk about the Rangers a little bit, the New York Hockey Rangers, as we have 3 games under our belt so far. The Rangers just came off their last of a back-to-back road trip with a tough loss in Carolina tonight. They lost 8-5. And in case you're wondering, no, it's not 1987, and no, Wayne Gretzky is not still playing. 8-5 somehow is an actual score that we saw tonight. The Rangers managed to blow leads of 2-0, 3-2, 4-3, and 5-4 before finally losing, in just tough fashion. Young team. Young goalie tonight. Lundqvist did not start the second of back-to-backs. They had the young Alexander Georgiev out there. It's just not good. A couple of observations that I have is that Jimmy Vesey, has really shown that he belongs here. He was a big question to me in the offseason. He's a person that I've spoken to with numerous people about not trusting him and not really seeing that offensive touch that you'd like to see at the NHL level. He's kind of a jam guy, and he doesn't really even jam that much. Well, he's getting a lot of jam. He had 2 goals tonight. Looked very good. He's been one of the most impressive Rangers so far under David Quinn. So I would definitely like to acknowledge Quinn for that. He already has shown improvement in one big player who the Rangers need to rely on. And another thing that has caught my eye with the Rangers so far is that they've taken too many men on the ice penalties. They've taken that a couple of times this year. That seems to be a coaching problem. Maybe it's just David Quinn getting used to the NHL way and things along those lines. But they really need to clean that up, because that's a penalty that you really shouldn't be taking this often at the NHL level. And that needs to be something that needs to be corrected. But just to backtrack a little bit, they lost opening night 3-2 against a tough Nashville team. They lost last night 3-1 in Buffalo, a game that was 2-1 near the end. They got an empty net goal to put the game away. But so every game so far has been just until tonight, actually. The first 2 were tough defensive struggles. Tonight was just an offensive slugfest. One team. It was really like the Rocky and Apollo Creed fight, where one guy would punch you in the jaw, on one side, and then the other side would come back and hit you on the jaw on the next one, and they'd just keep returning blows, and it just did not end in the Rangers' favor. They faltered in the biggest moments of the game, and it stinks. But they got a young team with a new system, and what are you gonna do? It's all about those growing pains that I mentioned before, and if you know that name, you got to. If you know that theme song and that TV show, crank up some growing pains right now, because the Rangers are going to be feeling that this season. They have a lot to figure out now. I have not liked the back check. It was terrible, for lack of a better word. I'm looking at you, Nemestikov. You've got to figure that out, because it's been pretty ugly, and you've already been benched for a game. So a guy that the Rangers took a chance on, gave a 2-year contract at $4 million a year. That nice little bridge deal just to see what he's got. Right now, he's not showing much. But don't overreact, Ranger fans. Don't overreact. I know the Islanders look pretty decent across town right now with the Stanley Cup champion head coach in Barry Trotz. Even the Tavares-less Islanders don't look that bad, to tell you that much. They've been scoring with pretty good ease so far. But don't compare yourselves to anybody else. Right now, the Rangers are in a rebuild mode. You've got a young, not a young coach, but a young coach in terms of NHL experience, and you've got a chance to build up from the foundation. The defense looks out of sorts. Georgiev was not good tonight, and you need better play from your goalie. There's a lot of things that need to be corrected, and we'll really see where we stand. I would say give it 10 games. Give the team the first 10 games to see where we're going, because it's either going to be one of two ways. You're either going to be, after the first couple of weeks, you're going to probably know this is a lottery team, or this is a team that's going to fight and compete and might be in contention for an 8th seed type playoff slot. You might, because you have a Hall of Fame goaltender in Henrik Lundqvist. Never forget that. Also, quickly, right before we finish here, I want to touch on the Knicks. 3-0 so far in the postseason. They won 106-100 on Friday night. They beat Anthony Davis and the Pelicans. Cantor has been a monster so far. All their young guards have impressed me. Burke, Schreier, Neil Kina. The only one that really hasn't is Moutier. Mitchell Robinson has been great. People have been calling for him to start already. Kevin Knox has been very impressive. He shows his youth at times, but don't be off-put by that. The kid's 19 years old, and he's a heck of a player. You've got all this young thing. Fizz really has these guys coming together. And as I finish up here, I just want to say that the Knicks, they're still trying to get out of that Noah contract. They'll be playing tomorrow night at Madison Square Garden against the Wizards. Who knows if he's even going to play? I wonder if they're going to get Noah into one of these games. They might, and they might not. Mitchell Robinson didn't even play in the last game, so I wonder what they're doing. But as we look forward, they'll be playing the Wizards tomorrow. They end the preseason Friday night at home against Brooklyn, and they open up October 17th against Atlanta. And I'm very excited for the David Fizdale era. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for tuning in tonight on Sports Talk 1240. I really had a great time breaking down all these sports. We got so many things going on right now here in New York and the tri-state area. It's a lot of fun. I'm sorry I couldn't get more into the Islanders. If you're an Islander fan or a Devils fan or anything like that, tune into my podcast, Coffee with Cramer, because I'm really going to be going into this coming up weekend. I'll be breaking down a lot of the other stuff that I couldn't get into here today just for time constraints. Thanks for joining me here in Sports Talk 1240. Don't forget to come right back next week and check us out. Always a great time. Don't forget to subscribe to Coffee with Cramer on iTunes. And finally, I want to say happy birthday to my mom, as it's her birthday on Wednesday. Happy birthday, Mom. I love you. Thank you guys for tuning in, and have a great week. I'll see you next time on the 21st.
The views expressed in the previous program did not necessarily represent those of the staff, management, or owners of WGBB. This is WGBB.